Yeah, come on. Here we go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spark. I'm Joanne Murphy. Our guest today is Robert Lee. And Robert is the co-founder and CEO of Rescuing Leftover Cuisine. I believe, because I am, you'll be inspired and intrigued when you hear about his work and the journey to get there. So I can't wait for you to hear about that. Hi, Robert.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You bet. Will you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Robert Lee, and I'm glad that you were able to manage saying Rescuing Leftover Cuisine without stumbling. It's very long, but a little bit of a self-explanatory name. But just as a way of introduction, I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in Queens, New York. Been here all my life, and still am. And basically, I think similar to many people, and maybe a familiar story for many folks, I'm a child of immigrant parents who came here looking for a better life. And essentially, I ended up working at JP Morgan before quitting my job to start Rescuing Leftover Cuisine, which you might guess brings excess food to those in need at homeless shelters, food pantries.
Oh, okay. So you said you were working for JP Morgan.
That's right.
That's a little bit different track, right?
Just a little bit.
What inspired you then?
Yeah, it's I think it's a lot of different things, but I think it really was a combination of both my personal background and really what resonated with me with my heart, as well as a more rational kind of decision, a little bit with my brain in terms of the move that I made. But just in terms of a little bit of my personal background, as I mentioned, my parents were immigrants from South Korea. They came here again looking for a better life for my brother and I, but they didn't know the language. I think they thought that they could figure it out. They thought that New York would have, abundant Korean population that they can, get by with until they learn the language. But my mom was a bank teller. My dad was a civil engineer in Korea. But when they came here, they basically, couldn't find equivalent jobs, and my dad ended up being a supermarket manager, and my mom was a homemaker. And they jumped, moved around to different jobs trying to figure things out, and ended up basically me growing up here and being born here, I just thought that that was normal. I thought skipping meals or having one meal a day was normal. I thought my parents skipping meals were normal. It wasn't only until elementary school when I realized that other children were not going through the same thing, didn't cherish food as much as I did, and we're throwing out like cute stuff like the ends of their sandwiches, like the crusts and stuff, and hated apples and carrots and stuff. And meanwhile, I was over here like freaking out every time someone was trying to throw it out. But I think growing up like that really helped me value food for what it is, which is life. And I think not only is the fact that we grow plants and grow livestock to feed ourselves, which is obviously a life that we're taking, but it also represents life in us as well. So to me, I think growing up like that, and obviously lots of different stories that my parents told me about wasting food to try to make it fun for me. I think some weird like karmic stuff, like every little bit of food I didn't eat would be like compiled, and then I would have to eat it in the afterlife. Was part of the stories that I grew up with. And it's I think that kind of background that really led me to get super involved in a club called Two Birds One Stone at NYU that brought leftover dining hall food to homeless shelters. And I think I was going down on my track for finance, really focused on trying to make money to make sure my family doesn't go through something like that again. But this concept of food rescue, this concept of taking excess food from restaurants and different food establishments and bringing it to those in need really stuck with me.
how are you getting food then to folks?
Yeah.
To families, to kids? How does that work?
Yeah. I should probably describe that and then kind of describe a little bit about kind of what we've been doing with COVID, because we've been actually working with some public school networks as well, especially in Boston. And I think, it's kind of insane in terms of, children as well. Like, there's roughly about 49 million Americans who are food insecure. And of that, 14 million are children. And it's just insane to think that the US has, that many children who don't know where the next meal is coming from. And I think typically people think about other countries when they think about hunger, but it's right in our backyards. It's literally right here. And I think, just in terms of how we tackle this and how we try to, help and bolster this, the system is really by taking excess food to those in need. And the way we do that is actually through a web application. And it's really a calendar tool, if you think about it. It's a very simple thing, and you essentially have this ability to kind of look at a map or a calendar and choose to volunteer for whatever pickup you want in whatever location you want, as long as we have availabilities. And essentially you would choose a pickup, sign up for it, and you would help out. You would actually arrive at the food donor location, help receive the food, either load it into your own vehicle, or if there's any equipment that we provide, some kind of carts and other types of equipment. And then we just transport the food directly over. We don't ever store the food. We directly bring it over to what we call human services agencies, which are homeless shelters, food pantries, community centers, places that distribute the food as well. And so the way we operate is really as a direct place, a connection between the restaurant that has the excess food and the agency that needs the food. And it's typically done within about an average of 30 minutes, no more than an hour, so that it's well within the temperature guidelines and requirements for potentially hazardous food being left out in the temperature danger zone for more than 4 hours. Mm-hmm. And so it's the really seamless, we hope, process. We've heard at least it's should be super easy. Sign up online, you get all the details, and you show up, help transport the food. And if you want, you can continue to help with the agency. We have many volunteers who sign up for shifts right afterwards where they bring the food, and then they immediately work at the agency to also distribute the food or prepare the food in bags to be distributed. And so it's in our opinion, very easy solution for people to just be connected. We at RLC do all the back end work of creating the partnerships with the food donor partners as well as the agencies to make sure that all the food, we know what types of food is coming, we know how much is coming, and we also know how much the agencies need and what types of things they need in terms of like dinner food, breakfast food and all that stuff. And so that's all done on our back end to figure out all the partnerships so that when the volunteers arrive, the food donor partners are aware and are prepared, have all the food packaged and ready for us to pick up and drop off.
I saw a fact that 90 billion pounds of food, this is crazy, I'm going to say that again, 90 billion pounds of food is wasted in the US every year. That just boggles my mind.
It's ridiculous.
Isn't it though? So what do you think are some of the larger societal factors that are contributing to the problem?
There's so many, and I think it's really, when you hear a statistic like that, I think, it just sounds so big and so massive that, I think there's multiple things I think that go through people's minds. But I think the first thing is like trying to grasp what that magnitude is. And what I like to say is just rescuing a third of that is enough to eliminate hunger in the US. Like that's enough nutrition. And I almost see it as a distribution problem of we just need to get the excess food that is, the 1/3 of it that is good, that is, safe, clean, easy for people to consume, and bring it to them. And we could literally eliminate food insecurity. No one has to be hungry. We actually produce enough food in this country to feed everyone. And the other part that I kind of think about is, I feel like sometimes people feel like they can't help because it's a huge, huge problem, age old. And it's something that I feel that I felt, especially also like, what can I do? I'm just trying to, help my family out and, and
Yeah.
just figure things out. And I think, how I ended up here is really just trying to do one thing at a time, and kind of working on it, little by little over time. And I think everyone can do a little bit, and it really goes a long way. But just to get back to your question in terms of societal kind of issues around how we even got to this point, I really do think that it's a cultural acceptance of kind of abundance. And I think it really kind of maybe started after things were really great and things were really abundant, maybe after, the war. And I think people may have started to become complacent around having a little bit of margin of excess and being okay with throwing it out. There are some posters from back during the, I think, World War I, World War II era, where it just says, food. I actually have on my refrigerator, buy it with thought, cook it with care, and basically all this stuff about never wasting it. And now you don't really see that kind of messaging from anyone, from any governmental agency, from any nonprofit organizations. And I think the mentality of food is almost now become a convenience thing. Things like Uber Eats, DoorDash, really help bring convenience to food, and excess food is just not convenient. It's just a nuisance. And I think it's easier to just throw it in the trash and not think about the fact that we use 50% of our US land, 80% of our fresh water to grow that food, and then to throw 40% of that away, only to end up in landfills that pile up on each other and then emit methane gases that are 30 times worse for the environment than carbon dioxide. It's just ridiculous, right? But like, no one wants to think about that. No one wants to care about it. No one wants to, it's a lot of work, and to do that 3 times a day is, a mental, drag. And I think a lot of the cultural norms became, even for events, if you go to an event and you have this gigantic spread of food, and you almost expect food to be left over at the end of the event. And if there's, food that runs out, it's a disaster for the event. Same thing for supermarkets. The abundant mindset of everything has to be a beautiful pyramid of oranges and apples, even though, a fraction of that might be sold. And I think that's the main driver, I believe, the abundant kind of mindset. And I think, not that we have to go back to like the scarcity mindset, but I think that there's a middle, there's a midpoint in between where we can be rational around the fact that, food waste is a huge moral, environmental, and economic problem. The fact that we're paying taxes to subsidize food like corn, the fact that we're spending money to 10% of our U.S. energy budget goes to transporting food. And so in general, we should all care about this, obviously, because it's our money, it's our climate, it's our people that are suffering. But I think the abundance mindset is really what's causing all this.
One of the things that you've said, so many things to think about and to know about, and one of the action items that I've come away with for me is put up on my refrigerator some magnets or notes to myself, just like yours, reminding me about food waste. And I mean, there are lots of times I have to confess, I clean out my refrigerator, and
yeah, same with me too. Yeah,
food that you forget about sitting there, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of my takeaways. Thank you so much for your energy.
Of course, thank you.
Really, really appreciate the work that you and your teams are doing, and your ambassadors that are helping you spread the word about rescuing leftover cuisine. I mean, that's really, really cool. I would like to say thanks to our audience for listening. I think you need to think about putting a note on your refrigerator as well, especially this holiday season. So I hope you kind of follow me in doing that. To our audience, don't forget to follow me at Joanne the Lola on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for the latest Spark updates. Thanks so much for sharing your Spark, Robert.
Thank you.